This is all that's left of Garston Tanning Company, or as I knew it, Garston Tan Yard. In its heyday, it employed around about 500 people, and now it's not even a shell, it's just this wall. That's all that's left. I'm very sorry if any of the wind noise ruins your enjoyment of this video. We had 4 storms during February of 2022, and even the days that weren't classed as a storm were very windy. I've done my best to keep the wind noise down, but filming outside with a microphone, it's not an easy thing to do. This is King Street in Garston in Liverpool, and its manufacturing history goes back many years. In fact, it goes right back to the 1790s when a salt works was built and they were refining salt which was mined in Cheshire. In 1864, Garston Steel and Iron Company opened their business in this building. They produced around 320 tonnes of iron and steel per week. They closed in 1893, and the premises were purchased by Garston Tanning Company in 1899. The tanning company was started by the Boston family. It was one of the largest tanneries in the country, processing around 10,000 hides per week. The company was later owned by Scottish Tanning Industries, and it closed in 2007. I worked here for a very short time in the early to mid 1970s. I was only here around about 4 weeks. It was my second job. It didn't last long. I moved on to an engineering job which I'd really looked forward to getting. But there was people who'd worked here for many years, 30 years plus, and many had family members who also worked here with them. Garston Old Dock was built here in 1850. Later, the new dock became the centre of 3 docks. The North Dock was added in 1867, and in 1909 the larger Saltbridge Dock was completed. Mainly they were used for exporting coal, but the Salthouse Dock obliterated the site of the old salt works. Garston is the River Mersey's most southerly dock, and it's owned and operated by Associated British Ports. Along with the dock at Bootle, owned by Peel Ports, these are the only 2 working docks that remain on the River Mersey. This is the 3rd place of worship to be built on this site. The first one dates back to around about 1235, but St Michael's Church was consecrated in November 1877. This is the old Speke Airport, and as a kid I used to come here and watch the planes come in. But occasionally me and my friends would just walk round the corner into Banks Road, and the planes would skim the rooftops as they came into land at Liverpool Airport. This is Speke Road, and these are the tenements that were here when I worked in Garston, known locally as the Tennies. If you were ever a smoker, cigars, cigarettes, pipe, or perhaps a cook, or maybe even an arsonist, you'll probably remember Bryant and May matches. Making matches dates back to 1887, when R. Bell and Company built the Mersey Works here on Speke Road. It was taken over by Maguire, Patterson and Palmer Limited in 1919, and they built this new factory. In 1922, Bryant and May took over, and they lasted here until 1994, when they went into liquidation and the factory closed. This building, called the Matchworks, is basically rooms for hire. If you've got a small business or enterprise, you can rent space here. One manufacturer, which I don't have any video of, is a business that was very synonymous with Garston for many, many years, and that was Garston Gasworks. In one of the photographs that starts this video, I've included a photograph of King Street with St Michael's Church, and just to the right of it you can see the huge gas cylinder. There was actually 4 gas cylinders, I believe, and that was the largest one and the most visible. But because Garston Gasworks no longer manufactures gas, the cylinders have been taken away, although they still do distribute gas from their site in Garston. This building is called Mersey House. It's a mock Georgian building. I think it's grade 2 listed, and it's now also rooms for hire, very much like the Matchworks which sits behind it. When I first left school, I wanted to find myself an apprenticeship, but things weren't moving very quickly, so in the meantime I needed to get myself a job. So I applied for a few things, and one of them was working in a shop, and I ended up in Garston on St Mary's Road, and that's where we are now. This is the other end of St Mary's Road, and where we started the video at the docks and at the tan yard is to our left. But I'm going to walk up to where you've just seen me at the Asda end, and then turn round and walk back again. South Liverpool Football Club used to play not far from here in a ground called Holly Park. We'll have a look at that later, but they've moved now and they play in Jericho Lane in Otterspool, which is a few miles up the road towards the city centre. I applied for quite a few jobs that I'd seen in local newspapers. Some of them I guess would have turned into careers, and others were just stopgaps because I wanted a job. And one of the stopgap jobs that I applied for, I ended up getting an interview, and surprisingly I actually got the job. And I started work for John Colliers, which was a gents outfitters. I started in London Road in Liverpool city centre, and after a short while the area manager came to me and said, "You live in Woolton, don't you?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, would you like to work in Garston? It's only on your doorstep. You wouldn't have to get a bus into town every day." So I thought, well, I'd better say yes. So I did, and I ended up in the John Colliers branch on St Mary's Road. So John Colliers was a Yorkshire-based business. All the garments were made in Yorkshire. You could have an off-the-peg suit, or you could have one made to measure, measured up and made personally for you. And they were in competition with the likes of Burton's, and some people thought also a company called Hepworth's. But Hepworth's and John Colliers, I believe, were the same company. But they didn't sell jeans, they didn't sell pullovers, they didn't sell underwear, and they didn't sell socks. It wasn't seemed to be the thing that gentlemen's outfitters did back then, even Burton's. These flats are built on the site of the former Carlston Hotel. It was a very famous landmark here for over 150 years, built in 1853 by a Matthew Atkinson. It was the subject of quite a few arson attacks according to the local papers, and it was eventually demolished in 2006. This is the view down St Mary's Road now, compared to how it looked in, I would guess, around about 1900. I thought I would compare two photographs which were taken during the hotel's demolition to video footage of how the scene looks today. So for this photograph I'm going to walk down what's called Dock Road to the bypass at the bottom, and then look back. I've crossed the main road and we're still on the Dock Road. This is a private road, and apparently I'm being filmed on CCTV, but this is the same dock that I filmed when we were on King Street, where the tan yard is. It doesn't look too busy today, but that's probably because it's a Sunday morning. I believe this is a very busy working dock. I've walked back up to where the flats are there, just on my right hand side here, and going to cross the road and walk past Asda. So this is where I started this sequence of the video off, but I'm going to walk to the end of this end of St Mary's Road before turning round and walking back again. This end of St Mary's Road is now just for incoming traffic. If you want to drive out of Garston, you have to take that left turn at the flats, or where the Garston Hotel used to be, and onto the main road where I've just crossed over to the docks. Now on the right hand side, just coming up, there's a barber's shop, and it has a wonderful mural on its wall. We've come to the end of St Mary's Road. I'm going to turn round and take a stroll back. I suppose you've noticed that there aren't many people around, and I've done that on purpose. I've come out early on a Sunday morning. It's around about 9 a.m. when I started filming, so it's around about 9:30 now. And the reason I do it is because If it was a busy shopping day, I would be walking into people and dodging them on the pavement, and you wouldn't get the same view of the buildings if it was a busy day. So I purposely come out when I think there'll be less people around, just so that you can see the area that I'm making a video about. I thought this road looked quite interesting. This building here has obviously been a dairy at some point, but there's also that church at the end, and that looks quite interesting as well. So I think I'll have a wander up this road and have a look at what the church looks like. We're now on Erb Street, and this Catholic church is called St. Francis of Assisi. The church was consecrated in 1930, and the tower was added later in 1938-1939. It looks like there's one or two other churches or former places of worship in this street, or on the corners of this street, and one's been turned into a home. Looks quite nice, really. I'm going to make my way back to St. Mary's Road, and it's just at the end of this street here. I really enjoyed my time working in Garston in John Colliers, and the reason I left to go to the tan yard was purely a financial decision, because back in those days you used to get a basic wage, which wasn't very much, especially with me being so young, and it was made up through commission of sales. Now, when you worked in the town centre, city centre Liverpool, you would sell loads of things. You would double, triple, quadruple your wages. But in Garston, that didn't really happen because there wasn't the same amount of people coming into the shop. Alongside the new customers that we had in the shop, we had quite a few regulars, because back in those days you could buy a suit or buy whatever you wanted, really, I guess, and it would be put on a weekly payment. And unlike today where it goes out as a direct debit, weekly payments then meant that you had to come in and pay each week. So Friday, Saturday was the busiest day of people just coming in and paying for things that they'd already had. Apart from the money, did I mention the money? I think I did. I think I mentioned money. Along with not making as much money here in Garston, I did actually enjoy it. It was more fun here than it was in the city centre, because there were some characters who lived here who used to come into the shop, and used to look forward to seeing them each week. Had a really good time. If they'd have paid me more money, I think I'd have stayed longer. Now, I thought I would come back to Garston and be able to point out the old John Colliers shop very easily, but unfortunately I can't. It was on this row somewhere. It was a couple of doors down from the Sayers shop, but I couldn't tell you exactly which one it was. If anybody knows, anybody remembers, be nice to know. I have a feeling it's around where this Discount Island shop is, although John Colliers was just a single shop and this one's a double, but it was around this area somewhere. Just going to cross over the road now and go round the George pub. There's been some demolition at the end of this road, and it's really windy on this road. It's not windy anywhere else now. It's just here. It's blowing a gale. But back in my day when I was working at Colliers, this was a row of shops as it is now. And there was a record shop here which I used to spend some time in on my lunch hour. Bought one or two records from here, which I guess my taste in the 1970s was a little bit odd. Do you remember the sensational Alex Harvey band? This old building here is the Garston Empire, and the building on the opposite side of the road with the shiny aluminium facade is part of the NHS, the National Health Service. The Garston Empire was opened in 1915, and it was a theatre which held live events, plays, etc. But by 1918 it turned to showing films, so from 1918 it was films only. The Garston Empire showed its final film in December 1962, and it was Elvis Presley's film Jailhouse Rock. From 1962 to 2009 it was a bingo hall, and that's how I remember it when I was here. But now it's lying empty and could probably go in derelict. I believe there was some plans to reopen it just before the lockdowns came in March 2020. So maybe we'll see it reopened again. Who knows? I'm walking to the crossroads where we began the walk up St Mary's Road. St Mary's Road would be a right turn. And you can also see St Michael's Church in front of us where we were in King Street at the Tan Yard and at the docks. In front of us is St Mary's Road, the one that we've just walked the full length of. Behind me is Speke Road, and I'm going to turn round and walk the full length of Speke Road and back again to this junction. This is what Speke Road looks like from the junction, and at the top here we're very near to the Matchworks, Banks Road and Speke Airport, the old airport. Just walking back now towards the junction with St Mary's Road, and it's just basically a road of shops. The shops obviously were built at a later date than the ones in St Mary's Road, and they also have facilities for parking your car, unlike St Mary's Road where it's just a narrow pavement. The buildings on the right hand side look like they're offices, and they're a pretty recent addition by the look of them. There's quite a lot of demolition that's gone on the right hand side of the road. The boards are still up. I'm not quite sure exactly what's been lost. It looks like quite a bit. But one of the buildings that used to be here was Garston Baths, and the only thing that's left is the facade of what looks like the doors. I'm going to head towards St Michael's Church again, towards King Street, just to show you the bridge here, which is the bypass Road Speke Road, which we saw at the top end of St Mary's Road earlier. So there's a bridge for the road, and there's also a bridge for a train line. This is Church Street, named after St Michael's Church, I guess, and you can see St Michael's here and its sandstone wall. If we carried on walking, we would be in King Street, which is the continuation of Church Road, and that's where the tan yard was and where we looked at some of the docks. But as we've seen that already, I'm going to turn around and walk back. Now behind me, if we'd have carried on walking, we'd have come to a roundabout at St Michael's Church. It was actually in the video earlier when I mentioned the church. And that left turn is Banks Road, which if you followed that round in an L shape, it comes out at the Matchworks and at the old airport. Walking back under the rail bridge and the road bridge and its wonderful graffiti. Still adds a little bit of colour, I guess, doesn't it? Looks quite good. This sequence of the video was filmed on a different day than the start of the video at King Street and the tan yard and the docks. That was filmed on a weekday afternoon, and as I said earlier, this was filmed on a Sunday morning. But we've had a really lovely bright blue sky. It's just slightly windy in places, but it's been a very, very nice morning. Back at the crossroads again, St Mary's Road in front of us. Behind me is Speke Road. To the left is Church Road, where we've just been under the bridge. And to the right is Chapel Road, the one with the Garston Theatre on. This was once the home of South Liverpool Football Club and Allerton Station, which makes me think this is probably Allerton, but according to Wikipedia, it's actually Garston, and this is South Parkway, which is a railway station and a bus terminus. And of course, you can't argue with Wikipedia. They fact check everything. This is the cenotaph, a place of remembrance for those who lived round here who fell in the First World War. Apologies for the wind noises on the mic today. It's a very, very windy, overcast day, and there's not a great deal I can do about it. The mic's covered up and it's in my pocket, but it's still picking up all the wind that's around this area at the moment. I'm going to walk back down to St Mary's Road and walk past the Palatine Hotel. When I worked at John Colliers, we used to get paid on a Friday, and the three of us, myself, the cashier and the manager, would come to the Palatine for a drink before we made our way home. So some fond memories of this pub. We had some fun in here. I have been told by people who live round here, and there was a segment on the local news to say that Garston was, or St Mary's Road in fact in Garston, was seeing a little bit of a resurgence where new businesses, new people were opening new shops. And walking along there is one or two. There's a couple of florists who cater for weddings and special events and birthdays and things, which is nice to see. It would be nice to see some of these shops open up, but maybe not the usual barbers, hairdressers, beauticians. You know, something different, something that drives people to this area. It would also be good if someone with some imagination could turn this theatre into something that drives people here as well. I know I didn't cover every square foot of Garston. I didn't go to the park, for instance, which is quite nice on a nice day. I tried to cover the most important parts of Garston and places that mean something to me from my teen years of working here. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching, and we'll catch up soon.